And so, hmm, so much of the way that the wisdom of this unfolding works is that what you nourish, you live, right? So whatever you nourish starts to nourish you. Whatever you feed, feeds you. Where you put your attention is where the growth and the flourishing happens. Every step you take towards the divine takes many towards you. And all of these kind of ways of expressing and sharing are really all pointing to the same thing, that what you say yes to, what you give, you receive, right? Whatever you nourish is what will ripen. There is such a kind of learned habit in our culture to give power away and to expect things to come from the external. But nothing that comes from the external is worth anything. It's all about what you nourish in yourself. It's all about the deep nourishment of your source connection, your connection to the frequency of pure divine love and wholeness that allows that remembrance to come online, to be the living resonance of the life, and then to be expressed on the surface of life. There can be so many abstract and esoteric ways of speaking about this unfolding, particularly in the spiritual teachings. But in truth, when we really distill it all down, and we're not actually following concepts and beliefs and secondhand information, and we're actually exploring our own direct experience, we're really coming to open to the wisdom of the heart, the simple wisdom that is already known. And in a way, it's what all traditions are pointing to. But if it gets really simply distilled down, it's about living in the presence of now, receiving all of life, not believing anything that your mind tells you, and taking a deep responsibility for your creation, honoring and valuing silence and emptiness, and really trusting and recognizing that the wisdom of our intuitive knowing is already here, that you already are everything that is longed for. And what we are really opening to is a remembrance, a direct experiential remembrance of our intuitive knowing, of our own wholeness, of our remembrance of the frequency of love. And every situation in life is offering us an opportunity to deepen the remembrance of our intuitive knowing and deepen our remembrance and intimacy with the glory, with our own source connection, that we can only enter this via our own connection to source. We can't piggyback on anyone else's connection to source. And that's one of the great myths of spirituality is that you somehow piggyback and you receive something from someone else, but it just isn't that way. Because if your yes isn't wholehearted, and if you're not nourishing your own yes, and you're not taking responsibility, and you're not fully immersed, absorbed, and absolutely sincere in your commitment, you won't create the appearance of that. You won't create that as your reality. It's like reality is here. Love is here. Everything is right here, shining bright. And it's about making the commitment to see that, to live that, to open to that, to remember that, to embody that, to shine as that. And no one can do that for you. And that's why, in a way the play of life often works is that it takes for us to come to some kind of suffering or stress, often to push us deeper. But it doesn't actually have to be that way. It's just that the wisdom will use whatever it takes to get us to listen, whatever it takes to stop us, whatever it takes to slow us down, whatever it takes to crack our hearts open. So nothing in the play is out of place. Everything is conspiring as a frequency of love, attempting to invite us back to the remembrance of our own wholeness. So in a way, to follow a sense of this unfolding being abstract, or to be compelled by the idea of transcending, is we discover, all part of the protective process. And that actually to really open to the fullness of what we are is about facing the fullness of life. That we cannot be whole if we are in a living experience of dividing. So it requires and invites us to not divide the moment, not divide in our experience, to keep our lived experience present, illumined, and whole. Keep the field unified, rest in the one wide open heart, in order to be able to have the power, grace, and illumined presence to receive any discordance that might be arising, and then have the absolute presence and power to transmute it through the nervous system, knowing what it is, knowing that what is happening is an opportunity, knowing that what is happening is not life being against you or something bad happening or a punishing God sweeping in and bringing something that feels hard, that we realize that everything is grace and that we're actually being initiated through the most incredibly intelligent process that's absolutely subtly designed for each being to open through the, let's say, the patterns of the unconscious that hold us captive in the mind's protections, and to realize that we have the power to illuminate everything. That when we go inside and we take everything inside, that we're, in a way, we're meeting life from the power and recognition that we can open to everything, we can receive everything without leaving our connection to source, and in that, our direct knowing of true essence nature and the recognition of the frequency of love and the wide open field that just is. So there are so many simple markers in life that where there's resistance, stress, suffering, complaining, criticizing, fear, anxiety, frustration, anger, whatever it is, it's offering us an opportunity to illuminate something that is rising out of the unconscious and offering us an incredible initiatory process to illuminate, to bring the light to what is in shadow, to bring the light and actually be the living process of illumination and transmutation. That our nervous system, our consciousness, is the living process of our evolution. It's the living process where we have the power to illuminate and reveal that anything that feels to be wrong, bad, hard, is actually grace in disguise, and that we have the power to illuminate and the power to take responsibility and transmute through the nervous system, through the consciousness. And that everything is happening in our inner landscape. Everything is happening in the inner process of consciousness. The most important part of this unfolding is our absolute sincerity to keep saying yes. And it's not saying yes to anyone else. It's not making a commitment to anyone else. It's not making a devotion to anyone else or anything else. It's actually shifting the power to such a depth of autonomy that we realize that we have absolute responsibility. And in that we are being invited to discover and confirm our own connection to Source, and to then meet in the field, to join in the field, the one wide open field, which is the unified field, which is the one self, the one wide open, silent, still presence of being. And so as these words come, it's all about the frequency. It's not actually about what the words are saying. It's about where they're coming from and what they're pointing to. And then it's about how the transmission is received, attuned to, and assimilated in your own consciousness. It's an invitation to attune and join here, to resonate at the frequency of your own knowing, your own heart's knowing, in the stillness and silence of the presence of being, and to meet in this field of truth, this frequency of truth, this wide open field of light. And the more that we, let's say, soak in this light, that we're saturated in this light, we remember that we are this field of light. And we remember that we have the power to illuminate. Once there's a knowing that you are the light, that you are the light connected to source light, to the divine light, it's a remembrance of the power to illuminate, the power to bless, the power to accept, allow, and receive the play of life, and to not project the power away, to not give yourself away, to stay so present with yourself, receive yourself, and to allow the inner processing of illumination to happen. So the sense of division, the sense of limitation, is a sense of lack, a sense of not enough, a sense of something wrong, something bad, something somehow not full. We could say a sense of scarcity, a sense of not being enough. And that sense will, in a way, we could say that's the core misunderstanding, the core belief, out of which the whole sense of separation and division, protection and conditioning is built. It's like we build the sense of personhood, and the mind's whole structure is built around that misunderstanding. What keeps it in place is unconscious guilt and shame and doubt, a belief that you're divided from the divine, and a belief that somehow you've done something wrong, which can play as feelings of unworthiness or feelings of lack. And so the play of the life can be so conditioned around trying to either hide that sense of lack or compensate for that sense of lack. Whereas what is actually being invited is to not be trying to fix and fill that sense of lack from the external, but to come to the realization in the connection to the divine, to realize that there is no lack and there never has been any lack. To realize the fullness, the goodness, the frequency of love that is the only reality underlying everything. So within that sense of scarcity, in a way, the antidote to that whole play of scarcity, of lack, which plays through as a scarcity of spirit, a scarcity of resources, a scarcity of care, a scarcity of kindness, and not only to others, but even more importantly to ourselves. And the way to, in a way, shift that is not to try to hide from it, but to actually open to a kind of wild generosity with yourself. And that wild generosity is accessed through opening to the remembrance of the connection to source, which opens us to the flow of natural abundance. A sense of that there's not just enough, but there's only one. And that one is complete and whole. And that when we open to that frequency of love, that there's only love, we're accessing not just a sense of enough, but a sense of fullness, a sense of wholeness. And in that, a remembrance that there never has been any lack. There never has been any wrong. And in that, there's also no right. That true righteousness isn't about carrying out behaviors that the mind plays out to seek validation or affirmation or confirmation that I am good. And it's not about proving it to anyone else, and it's not about subtly trying to prove it to yourself. It's about realizing that the innate essence nature of all is goodness, pure, essential, primordial goodness. That there's only goodness, there's only one light, one love, one whole integral being. And there's so many subtle ways that we get involved in trying to tap into a way of proving that I am good, I am righteous, I am whole. And it's never actually through the behaviors. It's never through your actions. Not when your actions are filtered through the mind. It's about being a living frequency of love, right? In being the living frequency, it's being the living frequency of wholeness, of purity. And in that, there's no one that needs to prove themselves, no one that needs validation or confirmation or affirmation from anyone else. It's an integral wholeness. It's a knowing of the integral wholeness. And in a way, this is what we are opening to. And the whole play of life is this opportunity to recognize and to deepen into this knowing. It can be so easy as well to say, oh, well, I do know that. And then start moving from places that don't know that. And the truth is that, yes, there is a knowing of that, but there's also these unillumined places that don't know that yet. And if there's not an absolute openness to realize that the whole of life is part of the whole, that there's no shame or guilt telling you to try to hide those places that are unillumined, we could say that the ever-deepening freedom allows us to include the unillumined places without needing to protect or hide. It's a deeper level of freedom, actually. There's a stage that we go through in this unfolding where we're so wanting to be validated and seen in what has been realized that we deny the places that are unillumined. And we keep saying, well, I do know that, I do know that, I do know that. And it's like, yes, you do know that. And those places don't know that yet. And that's okay. The more that we realize this, the more freedom there is. In a way, it's like the freedom to be a work in progress. But that's not even totally accurate, because the process and the progress is the natural refinement process. And in a way, in our human experience, that refinement process doesn't stop, because as we refine and refine, we open to dimensions of our true essence nature and dimensions of light that, let's say, they're always setting the bar at a more refined possibility. And again, we can be so conditioned to have ideas about achieving and goals and having a sense of arriving somewhere. And in a way, we're always being invited to surrender whatever we feel like we've arrived at, surrender it back in to the one, give it back, jump off the ledge that you might be resting on, and never, ever never land anywhere. This is what keeps the freshness and the humility alive, is that there's always a willingness to be humbled and to surrender deeper, not as someone that's surrendering, but just as that integral wholeness that surrenders infinitely into itself in absolute devotion to itself. That we don't know anything. And we don't have any idea where we are in this unfolding. And that's actually the most holy place to be, let's say. The holiest place is to not know. The holiest place is to not think you are holy, right? Because as soon as we think that we are holy, we're hanging out on the holy ledge, and we're lining up with everyone that's ready for a big fall. And let it be fun, you know, let the fall off the holy ledge be a glorious one. Because being humbled is always glorious. Being humbled and realizing that where we thought we were, what we thought we knew nothing. We knew nothing. It's just to keep giving it all up. There's so much freedom in not feeling like you need to arrive anywhere. So much freedom. It gives the freedom, most importantly, to really fully live life and to not pretend that you're some kind of holy being that's living the life of a sadhu or a sadhvi, you know, that you're living in the cave, but you're trying to be a householder, but you've got to deny the world and you shouldn't have any belongings and you need to behave in all of these ways. It's like, what a stress, what a stress, what a strain to be trying to effort to create an appearance of a holy being, right? The grace that is given when we let go of all of these ideas is that we can fully embrace in life. We can fully embrace life, all of life. We can fully live as the frequency of love on the surface. We're tapped into the flow of abundance, the flow of divine creativity and inspiration and aliveness and glory. And from here, we have the capacity to actually bring forward and manifest a reality which is like a new, which is heaven on earth, right? We actually have the power within our lived experience to create a manifest expression of the absolute. And in a way, this is our job. Our job is not to abstract, and our job is not to sit on the holy ledge. It's actually to be in constant freshness, in constant aliveness, freshness, inspiration. And the deeper that we open to the frequency of love, and the deeper that we're rooted in the knowing of true nature, that our service is to live this and bring this inspiration to the surface of life. And this is where it starts to get really fun and exciting, right? This is where we start to find out what actually is the living Dharma. How do we actually live this? And of course, these kind of questions have been arising for years, but you can't really know how to live this until you know what this is, right? You can't live this until you know what this is and that you are this. So you can't live it until you are resonating at the frequency and the power to manifest this, to be the living frequency of this. We can be so curious about our Dharma, so curious about how we are to be of service. So curious about the living of this. And essentially the living of it is to live the frequency of love, to be living in the yes, the sincerity, and to be receiving life, all of the ways that we're speaking of, receiving the grace of life, transmuting, coming to such an integrity in our lived experience. And we're not speaking of an integrity that's a measure of anything. We're speaking of a living integrity, which is where we're so aligned with the being and the truth and the source connection that we're not always aligned. We trip up. We have moments. But it's not about what happens, it's about the alignment of the heart. It's that the compass is set at integrity, right? That the compass is set as a living integrity that is willing to just keep opening, keep being humbled, receiving the grace of life, receiving the refinements and the subtle refinements of perception. And that there's a wisdom and intelligence that's carrying it all, which is the light itself that we are made of, that the field is made of, that everything is made of. And that we're being carried into the remembrance that there's only God, only love, only one. And that wherever we are in the process, that we are living in an integrity with our own heart, let's say. That the integrity is not judged or measured externally. It's a living integrity in your own heart, that your heart feels aligned with integral wholeness. Because when the heart is aligned with integral wholeness, the heart feels joyful, it feels happy, it feels connected, it feels intimate and whole. Because true joy and happiness is the knowing of true nature. It's the connection to our own divinity, to the field. And when the heart feels to be in integrity, there isn't suffering. There's stresses and things that arise in life that are inviting us to face and meet, but it's not a suffering. A suffering is the misunderstanding and like a resistance to life. And when we're not resisting life, we don't suffer in the same way. We have big feelings at times, and we have to be with the big feelings at times. But there's always a deeper knowing, a deeper, wider holding of the integral whole, of the heart that knows the belonging to the divine, to the light. And in this responsibility, the light that we know that we are, that we belong to, and the responsibility, we're shining the light upon what is discordant. We're feeling the feelings, the big feelings, and we know, we have the wisdom and the intelligence of our knowing that recognizes this is all good, this is all grace, this is all opening and shifting and refining and purifying. And if we don't identify with what is happening as a someone, and that's really the hardest part, is that the deeper that we go, that in a way, the deeper that we're tested, and the test is not like an unkind test. It's actually, it's like initiatory. It's testing our capacity. Okay, you've opened to this. Can you now be with this? What are you going to do here? How are you going to manage this? How are you going to navigate this? Right? So there's there's like such an adventure in it, that whatever arises, okay, wow, here's an opportunity to navigate this aligned with the integrity of the heart, where I'm absolutely in the integral knowing of what I belong to, what I'm saying yes to, where I'm nourished, what I'm nourishing in order to be nourished, keeping that flow of source connection and the frequency of love and the field wide open. And now I look upon as the light and illuminate what is discordant here, and I be with it, and I bless it, and I open to it. And now I have this opportunity to navigate something that I've never had to navigate before in this exact configuration, right? That in a way, it stops life being a confusing puzzle, because we're not trying to fix it or solve it. We give all of that up. We don't need to understand. We don't need to fix it. It's about being with it, and in a way, bringing everything to the frequency of the integral whole, allowing a rejuvenation and a recalibration and a remembrance that there is no lack, no bad, no wrong. There is only one, and you are that one. And that's what the intelligence of life is attempting to bring online through every being, and using the means of the infinite field of possibility to bring forward whatever will stir us, touch us, crack us open, bring forward the deep old feelings of lack and scarcity, so that we have the possibility of refining. If we could have what we wanted and just get it just like that, we wouldn't have the power of refinement happening. If the ego was satisfied, in a way, even if the fantasy, like the happy ever after fantasy of the ego, was satisfied, we wouldn't actually feel fulfilled, because is fulfillment is only in remembrance of wholeness. That is why when beings have everything that they think they want, right, can think of everything that you want, and you can work hard to try to achieve it, but there's never a sense of satisfaction. And so when we stop trying to get everything we want, and also when we stop thinking that we're failing because we haven't succeeded in the material world, in the material sense, if we feel like we haven't achieved, or that we have achieved, but we're still somehow not contented, what we realize is that we're being invited to a different track, the track of the glory, the track of light, the track of remembrance. And to come to this track isn't about achieving material success in the world. It's not about fitting in and belonging and achieving. It's about aligning with true nature, remembrance. And then the true fulfillment comes in recognizing the source connection, feeling the joy and happiness, which is causeless, that doesn't actually need anything, that doesn't actually feel motivated to achieve anything, to prove itself, and yet moves only from inspiration. It moves in a creative flow, in perfect timing within the functioning of the whole. So a lot of that is about just resting and waiting for life to act, life to make the move. And it can be a full life, and a busy life, and it can be a quiet, gentle life. And it doesn't matter, because there's no one trying to prove themselves to anyone or trying to be seen in any capacity, because there's a knowing that we're all functioning as one whole, and we have our unique way of functioning. So there's no competition or comparison. And yet we have this power to in our divine knowing, we have this power to be the divine manifestation, to live the divine manifestation. And what that looks like and means is so fun and exciting, is that we're not creating from the me, but that we are the vehicle for the divine manifestation to come onto the surface of life. In a way, we could say, let's say in our human worldly language, like the new earth, a new world, heaven on earth, whatever it is, but we are the vehicles for the creation of that, a new humanity. Words are tricky, because it's not exactly that, but it's a shift, a complete paradigm shift that is not about improving or making the world of separation better, because it cannot be made better, because it's a frequency of lack. And it's not about trying to fill the frequency of lack with more things. It's about realizing that that's not reality. And reality is a frequency of love and fullness and abundance. And it's about investing in the divine reality, about investing all that we are in the divine reality, to create a manifest expression of the frequency of love. And what that looks like is not fixing the world. It's recognizing that the world is the macro expression of the micro me that feels broken. And as long as there's someone that feels broken, they will see a macro expression of a world that is broken. And once the sense of what I am realizes that I am goodness, I am divine purity, I am light, then the living appearance, the creation, is a reality. Sometimes we could call it God's dream. So it's not about fixing the world. Fixing the world, in a way, is trying to fix the divine Leela, the divine play. The play has a purpose. It's a vehicle. It's, we could say words like it's a school. It's a it's a realm of experience that's supposed to feel challenging in a way, because it's reflecting our belief in our brokenness. It's reflecting our belief in lack. So if what we see on the screen feels like it brings feelings and stresses and emotions, what we realize is that we're not supposed to be trying to fix that on that level of consciousness. That in a way we can only resolve it at a finer, and we could even say higher, frequency of consciousness. You cannot fix anything at the same level of consciousness. And my goodness, you definitely cannot fix it at a denser level of consciousness. You can only fix anything at a finer frequency, on a micro level and a macro level. And our work is actually not to try to fix the macro appearance, but to realize at a micro level the truth of who we are, and realize that there's nothing micro about us. And at the same time, the micro might be parallel to the point, but the point is a point in the infinite unbounded field. And as we take our place in the frequency of remembrance, we stop trying to fix the world, and we stop even trying to fix the me at a micro level. And we realize that it's only the shift in perspective that brings a resolution, and then an appearance, a creation out of the frequency of what we're living. And we start having this capacity to bring God's dream alive. And this is where we start to find our purpose and fulfillment, and to live a life that has meaning, but it doesn't have meaning in the worldly sense. What it means to thrive in reality is to be living in a constant, unbroken flow of joy and grace and happiness, and that is your compass, that is your measure, is the unbroken flow of joyful exuberance and wild generosity of spirit, heart, resources, and adventure. And that we're living in a new paradigm of caring, sharing, giving, receiving, and loving, right? It's a totally different frequency than the frequency of scarcity, of mind, division, limitation, fear, lack, not enough. And it's really that if we keep feeding that frequency, scarcity, fear, lack, not enough, if we keep nourishing that, we will perpetuate that. Our life view will continue to be that. Whereas if we are feeding the frequency of caring, sharing, loving, giving, receiving, because to truly receive is the kind of the greatest act of giving. If we really receive and we really invest all that we are into the divine reality, and if we are investing in the divine reality, what we're starting to harvest is the glorious frequency of abundance. We're harvesting the frequency of our own divine light, of our own divinity, so that we're self-sufficient, and we're resonating at a frequency of love, of goodness, of transparency, honesty, that we're fully self-sustaining because we know our wholeness. We're not needing to play out any games of lack, because we are absolutely plugged in, fully engaged, and not engaged in an abstract way of, oh yes, I know my connection to source, but now I'll just play out in the world of scarcity and lack, and I'll do my best to fit in and achieve and make a happy life in that. It's like, that's not 2 feet in. That's like a toe in the water, right? To really be 2 feet into this is taking an adventure into something that doesn't have a template. You can't read a book about it, right? No, you can't. You are the living aliveness of this evolution happening. So to be an intrepid adventurer is to live this, to step fully into this, and to let your investment be fully into the divine reality. All the way, right? And this is what we're speaking of, that we imagine that oh, this is the achievement. This is and this is where I want to get to. But what we realize is, oh man, there's a glass ceiling here, and you can just supercharge your life and become a skyrocket that just blasts right through that glass ceiling. And you discover that there are so many more realms of light to explore, right? So it's to recognize that there are so many glass ceilings that we put in place to keep ourselves safe within what we think we know, even within the unfolding of our remembrance of the truth of who we are. We're like, oh, well, this is pretty good. I'm feeling pretty happy and joyous. My life feels pretty comfortable. Maybe I'll just put my feet up here. Maybe I'll just put my feet up here and make the best of this, you know, sit cozy by the fire and just hang out here until the body drops. Sure, that's a possibility. But if you're wired as a pilgrim of the light, as an emissary of the light, that is not the place to rest, right? It's to take the adventure all the way and to see, oh, that's a glass ceiling. That's a place of saying, okay, well, I'm kind of comfortable here. And I think I'll just, you know, make myself cozy here. We are the living evolution of humanity. We are the living evolution of the consciousness that has created the appearance of humanity and is in the process of creating whatever is next, whatever we are, right? We're in the process of evolving in such a profound way. And the living of this is this wild adventure. And it starts here now. It starts here now in the presence of being. It starts here now by receiving the frequency of the big picture, wherever you are in this life and this unfolding. It's also to know that when the big picture is presented, it's also easy for the mind to say, oh, well, that's very easy for you to say when you see the big picture, but that's not what I see. That's not where I'm living. Wow, way to put a glass ceiling right there, boom, in place, right? It's to immediately see that and to see how the mind limits itself. Well, I don't know how to do that. I don't, like, that just sounds like, whoa, what's going to happen to this and that and the other? But it's not to give power to the mind and its habit. Its only way of operating is to limit and go to fear, because the mind itself is fear, is limitation. It's actually when the speaking comes and the big picture comes, it's to feel the frequency of the heart and notice, does the heart feel alive? Does it feel joyful? Does it feel excited, inspired? Does it feel something that is so far beyond the mediocrity of hope, right? Right? Hope is just such a hopeless place to be hanging out, right? It's such a fearful place to be hanging out. It's like, does the heart start to feel like, wow? And you don't need to know, because you can't know, because we don't know, because it doesn't know, right? What is happening hasn't happened before, not in this way. There can be many predictions, but it's not even about trying to find a concept to hang on to in a prediction. It's not even trying to find something that qualifies it. It's about receiving what is being spoken at the frequency level and just feeling what happens in your heart. What happens in your direct experience, and to allow that to be the grace. It might bring fear. It might bring wild excitement. Wherever you are in that tree of life. It's to be nourished wherever you are, right? Wherever you are, whether you're under the tree taking shade, whether you're a little bug crawling around under the tree, whether you're, drinking the sap of the tree, whether you're, a bird resting in the tree and making a nest, whether you're a monkey swinging in the branches, right? Whether you're a leaf on the tree that's connected, whether you're the roots of the tree, it doesn't matter where you are, because we all have a unique function. We're uniquely configured, but we're operating as one whole. So whatever happens in your system is a glorious flow of grace that's an invitation to purify and meet any fears and stresses, resistances that arise, and to move in all the ways that we've been speaking of, that we take responsibility. We remember the source connection. We come to presence and we join in this field. And what we have to say is that what is being spoken is coming forward out of the frequency of our joining, right? It's not coming from, let's say it's not being channeled from some kind of entity from the astral realm, it's not coming from another dimension or another planet. What's coming forward is a living expression of the field and the frequency of the light of consciousness and the glory of God that is actually here, right? It's not up there on planet Zog. It's right here. It's the reality that's right here, and it's living itself, and it's using this form to express what this field of joined heart frequencies know to be the truth. This form is just a voice piece, like a loudspeaker, if you will, right? It's just expressing what is here in the field. And so on some level, your heart recognizes this. And it doesn't matter if it doesn't just download the whole thing, and it's not supposed to. And yet, at the same time, great glorious joy is that the perspective can shift immediately in this field, because the reality is here, and it's not a process in time. It's not a heading for the future. It's not about what we're speaking is not the future of the world, the future of humanity. What we're speaking of is the glorious presence of now, the eternal now. We're speaking about what we are when we're not bound by time and space, when we're not bound by the smallness of my life. We're speaking about the glory of living this frequency. And what we're starting to speak about, which is so exciting, is the living of this. Because to speak about the living of this, we have to know what this is. And as we start to realize what this is, we're being invited into finer dimensions to align with divinity and receive the grace of the divine frequencies, and to be the manifest creators of this divine expression. That we're being invited to bring this forward, to bring this to the surface of life. It's like the divine has waited and has been working to refine the vehicles to be ready and fine-tuned enough to be able to receive the frequencies that bring this love to the surface of life at a frequency that can have an impact. It's just the beginning. It's just the beginning. And that's why there are 20-ish people in our meeting and not 200,000, right? Because it's just the beginning, right? Most people still in the collective of humanity are immersed in the play and think that it's all about success. And even those involved in the New Age movement are all concerned mostly with the me and trying to be a good me. What we're speaking of is the upwelling of a frequency that is the frequency of one light, one glory, one whole. And this invitation is that we join in this frequency. And we're not joining something. We're not joining a club. We're not joining anything of the world. We're joining together in the one heart. That our gathering is an environment for refining and preparation, let's say. There are many satellite communities all over that are doing this same work, and we are joining in the frequency field. We're finding ways to join in the frequency field so that the dots can join, and at some point there's the incredible profundity of the different satellites joining frequency, and an incredible shift happening. Because it doesn't need for every being in the human realm to join in this field. It just takes for the frequency field, for the balance to tip, and it affects the whole in the most indescribable, unknowable, glorious ways. And let's say here that what knows that here in the field because it's already living it. The reality is already living itself. The reality is already whole, already vibrant. So just dropping deeper into the silence of the heart and the knowing of the heart and the glorious recognition of where your heart is singing in the knowing. Because where your heart is singing in the knowing is the recognition and the frequency which is deeply nourishing itself, nourishing the knowing of truth, the nourishing of the flow of abundance, nourishing what in a way is the essential nourishment to refine and keep opening to finer and finer frequencies. That in a way, the nourishment is like the harvesting of the bliss light. It's harvesting it and using it to deepen. It's like feeding the bees their own honey, right? It's like being wild bees, like being nourished by the nectarine bliss that we are creating, and knowing that it in a frequency field it ripples out, but that it's nourishing and refining the frequency, not for anyone but for the whole, and that we in that frequency field we receive an amplified nourishment, and that supports the remembrance that what we are in true nature is good. There is no wrong or bad, that we don't need to prove ourselves, that we are living this truth and just nourishing through drinking the bliss light, deepening in, and in a way waiting for the absolute clarity before any kind of movement happens, so that movement is a flow of inspiration, a total flow of divine inspiration that is really recycling its own nourishing resources, which is the bliss. It's like a constant recycling of the nourishing resources of the field, loving, caring, sharing, giving, receiving. A totally new dynamic to the ways that we have learned to live. And so we nourish what supports us. We say yes, we nourish with our attention, with our awareness, with our awakeness, and yes, with our resources in sharing. It's like, because to nourish in this way is to nourish yourself, because there's only one. There's no division. And what we give, we receive. Whatever we give comes back to us in this frequency. There is no lack. Nothing belongs to us. Nothing belongs to us. And this is, in a way, one of the greatest realizations that's so incredibly freeing. It's great glory, great glorious one. Everything is yours. Everything is yours. I am yours. Everything is yours. Nothing is mine. Everything is yours. It's so incredibly freeing to not need to be attached and hold on to energetically, to know that everything is the one. There is only one. That's all there is. And in a way, life is conspiring to bring us to this knowing, so that we can live in the freedom of not dividing and not limiting, that we can live in the freedom of not being attached, in a way not having either attachment or aversion. That we're here in a way poised, drinking in the nourishing bliss nectar, and just waiting for the inspiration to move us in the ways that our unique configurations are dharmically aligned for. And of course, this also then aligns with the true heart sankalpa that we've spoken of. That the heart sankalpa is what the heart knows about what this life is for. It's like what our unique configuration is wired for. And the deeper that we come into alignment with the one wide open field, we align with the sense of the unique sankalpa, and the process of the intelligence is just attempting to align everything for the vehicle, for the instrument to be used in that way, so that we're living that sankalpa. And in a way, it's almost as if the heart already knows that and is already living that to the fullest that it possibly can, but it can refine and it can get subtler and subtler and more profoundly aligned with the divine as a force of creation and manifestation of heaven on earth, being the love, the expression of love at exactly the fine frequency that we're wired for. And the more that we're attuned with this, we have the ability then to recognize it, to recognize simply, oh, this is what I'm here for. And it's not a great complex purpose that is about being seen or understood or being validated. It's like finding out that you're a cog, you're a wheel in the functioning of the whole, and that we feel joyful when we're functioning as a whole. We don't feel joyful when we divide. We don't feel joyful when we limit and separate. We don't feel joyful when we're cut off, when we're in that sense of scarcity and lack. On whatever level, we don't feel good. We feel good when we are wide open and the heart is wildly generous in every way, that we're ready to move in whichever the ways the inspiration carries us, in order to be the most profound expression of love and sing that song uniquely on the surface of life. So how beautiful this is.